In a snow-covered forest, a couple is strolling peacefully. Suddenly, the man stops in his tracks. He notices some unusual footprints. His expression turns serious instantly. He grabs his girlfriend's hand and pulls her behind a rock wall. She winces in pain, angrily asking, "What's wrong? Why are you so tense?" Before she finishes speaking, two bullets strike near them. Clearly, something is terribly wrong. The man quickly pulls out a gun. His girlfriend, stunned, exclaims, "You have a gun? How do you have a gun?" But the man has no time to explain. After scanning the area, he spots the assassin's location. Above them to the right. He presses himself against the rock wall and moves carefully. Then, with precision, he fires 2 shots upwards. Both hit their target. The assassin collapses. The assassin falls headfirst to the ground. The man rushes over, searching the assassin's belongings. Meanwhile, his girlfriend stands frozen in shock. She finally asks, "Is the assassin dead?" She urges him to call the police, but as she takes a step forward, he shoots her from behind. His girlfriend wasn't an accomplice of the assassin. He killed her simply to ensure his own identity remained hidden. This man's name is Jack. He is a professional assassin, cold-blooded and ruthless. He shows no mercy. Soon after, he boards a train to Rome, Italy. There, he meets with the leader of his organization. He asked the boss about his next steps. The boss told him to lay low in a small town. If there was a mission, he'd be notified by phone. Jack immediately drove to the designated small town. However, upon arrival, he noticed at a glance that the locals seemed rather unfriendly. He quickly felt unsafe. So, without hesitation, he turned around and left. On the way, he discarded the phone the boss had given him. Jack then drove to another small town nearby. This town was also built on a hilltop. From a distance, it appeared layered, with maze-like stone paths running through it. Jack rented a house and settled down temporarily. The setup of his room was very minimal. Other than a bed and a desk, there was nothing else. Each day, he did only 2 things, working out and visiting the cafe for a coffee. He passed his days in peace for a while. One day, he decided to call the boss. The boss immediately expressed dissatisfaction, asking why Jack wasn't answering his calls. He then said he had a new job for Jack. It was a client request. No shooting required, he added. Jack, bored, agreed to take the job. He went to meet the client. The client was a beautiful female assassin. She tasked Jack with building a gun. It needed the firepower of a submachine gun, but the range of a rifle. It sounded difficult. But for Jack, this was a piece of cake. Aside from being an assassin, Jack was also an excellent gunsmith. After returning home, he ordered some gun parts online. He began assembling the gun himself. Life in the small town was boring. In his free time, he befriended a warm and hospitable priest. Jack often visited the priest's home for chats. Besides that, he frequently went to a brothel to meet a curly-haired prostitute named Xiaoqiang. It didn't take long for him to finish the gun for the assassin. Jack went to a deserted riverside to test the weapon himself. Every shot hit the target, perfectly accurate. He was very satisfied. A few days later, the assassin came to inspect it. Jack brought her to the same riverside. Jack remained cautious, but the assassin was quite at ease. She said she had brought a target, a metal sunflower. She then turned her back on Jack and walked far ahead to place the target. At the same time, she also exposed herself as a target, but Jack didn't shoot her. The assassin returned to Jack's side, picked up the modified gun, and fired a shot. Every round hit its mark with precision. She then made another request. She wanted Jack to go to the reeds nearby and aim the gun back at her. Jack obeyed immediately. He walked to the reeds and raised the gun toward her. Once again, the assassin became the target. She looked visibly tense, but Jack didn't pull the trigger. Afterward, the assassin expressed her satisfaction with the gun and asked Jack to make a few minor adjustments. After that, it would be ready for delivery. Jack had no objections. After all, she was the client. That night, after seeing the assassin off, Jack went to visit the prostitute again. That evening, Jack told the prostitute, "You don't have to treat me like other clients. No need to act." The prostitute greatly appreciated his honesty. The next day, she personally sought him out and formally invited him to dinner. Jack immediately accepted the invitation. As he was walking alone on the street, a man suddenly appeared behind him. It was clear the man had come to kill him. The street was covered in gravel, and the sound of footsteps was crisp in the night. Jack quickly realized he was being followed. He quietly removed his shoes, drew his pistol, and circled behind the assassin. Just as he was about to fire, a motorcycle suddenly roared out from behind. Hearing the noise, the assassin turned and fired a shot. Jack quickly dodged to the side. Meanwhile, the motorcycle driver fell to the ground. Seeing the situation change, the assassin fled immediately. Jack turned over the motorcycle driver's body and found that he had been fatally shot. He jumped on the motorcycle and gave chase. The assassin ran desperately to the highway and escaped in a car. Jack pursued him on the motorcycle, firing shots as he followed, but none of the shots hit. He decided to change tactics. He shot out the car's tires. The car swerved and crashed into the curb. The assassin reached for his gun, but Jack smashed the car's window first, grabbed him by the neck, and strangled him to death. Immediately after, Jack called the organization's boss. Jack called the boss, saying that the Swedes had found him. He questioned how they knew his location, as only the boss knew. The boss replied, "You must have slipped up." Jack was unhappy with the response. He angrily hung up the phone. That night, he tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Early the next morning, he went out for a walk. Coincidentally, the priest was also out walking. The two began chatting as they strolled. The priest got straight to the point, saying he knew Jack was a man with heavy sins. "Last night's events were your doing, right?" He urged Jack to confess to him. However, Jack resisted. Not only did he refuse to confess, but he also exposed the priest's secret of having an illegitimate child, forcing the priest to confess instead. That evening, Jack had dinner with the prostitute. It was another passionate night. He woke up to find himself at her house, while she was showering in the bathroom. With nothing to do, he started looking through her belongings. To his shock, he found a small handgun in her bag. Could she also be here to kill him? Jack was deeply shaken. From then on, he began secretly following her, but he didn't uncover anything suspicious. One day, he took her to a peaceful spot for a picnic, hoping to test her further. The prostitute was in high spirits, stripping off her clothes and swimming in the river. She even invited Jack to join her. But Jack wasn't in the mood for swimming. She seemed to notice his unease, and soon came back to the shore. The two of them started a picnic on the grass. During this time, the prostitute suddenly reached into his pocket. Jack became very nervous. He immediately pulled out the gun hidden in the basket. But to his surprise, the prostitute pulled out a bottle of sunscreen. She asked Jack to help apply it on her. Jack was stunned. Only then did he realize he had misjudged her. He immediately confessed his mistake. He asked her why she was carrying a gun. The prostitute replied angrily, "Two of my colleagues were killed recently." She felt it was safer to carry a gun. After some argument, they understood each other better. Their relationship grew deeper. The boss proposed that Jack leave with him. Jack flatly rejected the offer. However, after careful thought, he called the boss again. He said that after handing over the gun, he would leave. He wanted to live a simple life with the prostitute. The boss agreed to his request without hesitation. But then, he called the female assassin. What was he planning? It couldn't be anything good. Jack started to feel uneasy. Why didn't the boss try to keep him around? Just to be safe, Jack opened the box with the gun and checked it again. Then he went to a coffee shop. He was meeting the female assassin there. This time, both of them were cautious. Suddenly, the female assassin said she needed to use the restroom. She then left with the box. Inside the restroom, she had prepared a gun. Jack was on edge. When he saw the female assassin coming out, he quickly put a gun in his pocket. He blocked her at the door. The female assassin pretended to say, "You don't need the gun." Then she went to the car to get the money. Jack dared not relax. He followed closely behind. After the female assassin handed over the ransom, she reached into her bag. It was clear she was grabbing the gun. Tension filled the air between them. But just then, a bus pulled up beside them. A group of students got off. Seeing this, the female assassin had no choice but to return to her car and drive off. Jack let out a sigh of relief. Could it be that he overreacted? Of course not. Then, the boss of the organization called the female assassin again. He asked how things were going. The female assassin said she didn't get the chance to act. The boss replied, "Then find another opportunity." These brief words actually revealed everything. The female assassin from the start was sent to assassinate Jack and the boss. Buying guns and all was just a distraction. If you think back, the Swedish assassin at the beginning must have also been sent by the boss. It's incredibly chilling to think about. Jack returned to the town to search for the prostitute. At this moment, the town was holding a parade. The streets were crowded with people. The prostitute hugged him from behind. They shared a passionate kiss. Jack asked, "What are you doing tonight?" The prostitute replied, "I'm working tonight." Jack said, "Don't work. Come with me and we'll run away together." The prostitute eagerly agreed. The couple was immersed in joy. Little did they know, a gun was already aimed at Jack's head. It was the female assassin, and she was using Jack's own gun. It was almost too late when it happened. The female assassin was shot in the head. She fell backward off the roof. Meanwhile, Jack was unharmed. What was going on? It turned out Jack had tampered with the gun in advance. When the boss agreed to his request without hesitation, he felt something was off and took action. It was clear he was a pro. After hearing the gunshot, Jack immediately handed over the money from the deal to the priest. He asked the priest to wait by the riverbank. Jack then quickly ran toward the female assassin. The priest noticed something was wrong and hurriedly followed. Jack reached the female assassin. He found she was unrecognizable, but still alive. He quickly asked, "Who do you work for?" The female assassin trembled, and weakly replied, "I'm working for the same person as you." Jack had already guessed the truth. He just needed confirmation. Suddenly, footsteps came from behind. Jack quickly turned, reaching for his gun. Seeing it was the priest, he lowered his weapon. When he turned back, the female assassin had already passed away. Jack apologized to the priest before walking away. However, as he walked, the boss of the organization appeared behind him. Jack sensed him and stopped in his tracks. He turned and fired twice. One shot hit the boss in the forehead. The other hit his heart. Even if the boss had 2 lives, he was still dead. The boss also fired a shot. But it seemed he hadn't used a gun in a while, and the shot missed. He wasn't able to kill Jack. With that, Jack had eliminated all his enemies. Finally, he could be at peace and be with Jake. He quickly drove to the riverbank. But not long after, he began to feel weak. He reached out and felt a wet patch. It seemed the bullet had indeed hit him. He slammed the steering wheel twice in frustration. His face was filled with regret and anger. He gritted his teeth and pushed on. He finally arrived at the riverbank. The prostitute was waiting for him. He reached out with his bloody hand, wanting to touch her. But just then, he collapsed onto the steering wheel. The car let out a loud honk. The prostitute repeatedly called his name, but she could no longer wake him. A butterfly slowly rose from the car roof. It was something he had always loved in his life. This film was released in 2010. It's a slow-paced film that tells its story seriously. After watching many loud superhero and action films, I accidentally came across this movie, and I found it quite enjoyable. The main actors also had great looks. Handsome George Clooney, need I say more? Among the two female leads, the actress playing the prostitute even sacrificed her body to give the audience a visual treat. I won't say more. For those who are interested, watch it yourself. Alright, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, see you next time.